I've received some requests to do reviews on ultra affordable watches or very affordable watches, and I thought this would be a good one to cover. It's a recent release. It's a design that will appeal to a lot of people, so I figured this would be a good one to do. Today we're taking a look at the Timex Expedition North, and this is one of the latest releases by Timex on their field watch collection. So boxing wise, it's pretty standard box. This is the inside of the box, if you can read that. But essentially they're kind of going after the eco-friendly market here. And here is the watch itself. Now this does seem to be a bit difficult to take out, so give me a minute. Okay, so I went ahead and got that out. It took me a little bit longer than I want to admit, but I got it out, and here it is. The Expedition North. So I think one of the appeals to this line of watch, because it did get quite a bit of coverage and a lot of promotion behind it, I think one of the appeals to it is really the overall specifications of it. So to run through it quickly, we have a 41mm case. This particular variant is, I think, advertised as gunmetal. It's blasted. Height-wise, we're talking about 12mm. You have a signed crown that also screws down. You have a water resistance of 100 meters. Lug width 20mm. And you do get a sapphire crystal, and it is solar powered. So as you can see, the watch is dead right now. I need to throw it out in the sun, but it should be operating normally as soon as I do that. So in general, I do think that this is a very good value given all the specifications and the price. You can pick this one up for, I believe, $159 straight from the Timex website. They do have a few discount codes floating around, so you can get this well under $150 for a solar powered watch with a screw down crown, 100-meter water resistance. I would say that's a pretty good deal. This does come in a couple of variants. This one here you might not be able to see because of our lighting here, but this is actually a kind of a green dial. And the green with the blasted case, I thought this was a nice combination. But they also have it, I think, in black, and I believe there's a white version too. And they do have also one that's a hand winding one, and I believe that one's that runs you at $250. So again, for a mechanical field watch with some pretty good specifications, I think that's a pretty good value. But let's go ahead and compare this to a few other watches and see how that looks. I brought out another Timex watch to kind of show the feel, and this is a very popular one, so you might have this in your collection and you'll be able to see how they kind of sit next to each other. Here's a Timex Q. So the Expedition North will be a little bit thicker than the Q. They're both quartz. You also see the Q has that high crystal, while the North does not. And the North is actually a little bit bigger than the Q. But really the big one I wanted to compare it to is this one right here. The Hamilton Khaki. Now you have these two watches that design-wise are almost identical. From the font to the numbers under each indice. And we'll see right now the Lume, the date window, the hands. Maybe the second hand is one of the only differences here, but almost everything else is identical. This Khaki here is not a solar powered watch, it's a standard quartz, and it did run me about $120 more expensive than the Timex, so that is something to consider. Also, this Khaki is a little bit smaller. I believe this is a 39mm, and it's quite a bit thinner too. But as you can see, they're very, very similar. They're both blasted. The dial is almost identical. They don't have that high dome. The lugs look very similar. Almost everything is identical here besides the color, of course. But this one does run you quite a bit more. So in terms of value, I would say the Timex is actually pretty good in this market. But again, these two are pretty similar. This one does have the crown guards here, but besides that and the dial color, they're just about identical. And again, this runs you about 75% more expensive. So let's try some Lume shots here and see how that holds up. I say this in every video, but I'll say it again. We're not in complete darkness here because I think complete darkness does create some misleading visuals. There's quite a bit of light here, so we'll see how this looks. Here it is. It's not the strongest, but it's definitely not the weakest either. I do like that the lume on each indice is actually a little triangle. We'll see with the Hamilton that is not the case. But overall, it's not the greatest lume, definitely not the worst. And for the price point, I think you could do a lot worse than this. It would have been interesting to see if they could do their in the glow, the backlight technology that Timex has. But I guess they're moving away from that on this line. So let's go ahead and compare it to the khaki. And even at that, they're very, very similar even with their lume. I do think the Hamilton lume is stronger, but obviously that's to be expected if you're paying almost double the price. But even the lume application is very, very similar, where the Timex has the triangles and the Hamilton has a little circles. And let's go ahead and try this on. Let's see the lume on the Timex Q. Similar lume. I'll be interested to see how this one fits in my collection. I do wear field watches quite a bit. And I think value-wise, this is actually really good. But I do wish it were condensed even a little bit more at maybe 39 millimeters. And I am a little bit worried about visibility. I got this particular variant, and this won't be an issue if you get another variant. But this one, the pictures actually on their website had the numbers a little bit lighter. This is actually kind of grayish to blackish. So we'll see how that kind of holds up. Yeah, I think you're able to see it here. We'll see how that one holds up. But with field watches, obviously visibility is very important. Hopefully that's not an issue. So let's go ahead and throw this on the wrist and see how that wears. On the wrist, it does wear quite nice. I'm not the biggest fan of natal straps, so I'll have to change that out. But it doesn't wear particularly big. I think because of the chapter ring and just the internal outer bezel, I guess you can call it. It does make this visually a little bit smaller. It wears really comfortable. The crown, I always appreciate a signed crown. And at least comfort-wise, this is pretty good. I have no complaints here, and we'll see how this does hold up being worn, especially in low light situation, and see how the visibility wears. But overall, I think my impressions are pretty good, and this is a rather good value proposition for anybody looking for a field watch or to kind of, get a little bit into the market without wasting too much money on this. This is a good value proposition, and we'll see how it holds up in my collection long term.